Daniel's 70th week prophecy, Part 2. Could 2014 be the beginning of the 70th week? How, when, and what? How will it happen? When will it happen? And what will occur during? Welcome to Chapter 3, the Rabbinical Prophecy of 1217 AD. But before we jump into that, we're first going to have a quick update from Chapter 2. Then we'll jump into the Rabbinical Prophecy of Rabbi Judah ben Samuel of 1217 AD, and the final 10 Jubilees of Jerusalem, what the Rabbinical Prophecy does not say, the Messianic end time, finally a Part 2 review, and my appendices. But wait, there is a ninth eclipse! And before I move on to my study on the Rabbinical Prophecy of 1217, I wanted to discuss something that I really just discovered. Because just to show that this study is a continuing learning process, I was focused so much on the eclipses in 2014 and 2015 that lead to the potential start of the 70th week of Daniel in Chapter 2 of my presentation, that I did not realize that there is a 9th lunar eclipse on a very significant Jewish holiday in 2016. So there are 8 total eclipses that make a complete unit in 2014 and 2015. But God, in His wisdom, punctuates them with a 9th lunar eclipse in 2016. And I believe the 8 eclipses declare a new era, as mentioned before, but the 9th serves as a warning of what Dr. Bullinger points out is divine judgment, impending divine judgment. The Jewish holiday that the first lunar eclipse falls on in 2016 is on Purim, on March 23, 2016. Though typically celebrated today with parties and fun, originally it was celebrated to thank God for saving the Jews from total destruction through the intercession of Queen Esther of Persia to King Xerxes. With her help, the Jews could be warned of the impending destruction and could mount a defense against those who would try to kill them due to Haman's evil scheme. See the book of Esther. But aren't there now 10 cosmic events? Yes, but if you remember my slide in Chapter 2 on the Hanukkah link to the 8 eclipses and the comet Ison, see below, the comet Ison was the center candle known as the Shamash, or servant candle. The 9th eclipse on another significant Jewish holiday, Purim, actually now makes that consistent. Ison is the first sign or candle that God will use to get our attention that may signal the time of upheaval that is about to commence. Also, what punctuates this particular lunar eclipse is that it is the last lunar or solar eclipse on any Jewish holidays from the rest of 2016 through 2021. So, there are 9 total lunar and solar eclipses from March 2014 through March 2016 on significant Jewish holidays or other important days. Now, one note, there is a solar eclipse that precedes this last lunar eclipse on Adar 1/29, or March 9th, over Australia, which is not a significant Jewish holiday, nor over Israel. So I didn't count that one since it doesn't seem to be a message to the Jews nor Israel. And this is not to say that the Lord does not have other interesting, quote, cosmic, unquote, events or patterns planned following this eclipse. But that story is to be reserved for Part 3 of my study on the 70th week of Daniel, what must happen before the week and what will happen during. The Rabbinical Prophecy of the final 10 Jubilees of Jerusalem. The year was 1217 AD. The famed pious Rabbi Judah ben Samuel prophesied that when the Ottoman Turks conquer Jerusalem, they will rule over Jerusalem for 8 Jubilees. Afterwards, Jerusalem will become a no-man's land for 1 Jubilee. And then, in the 9th Jubilee, it will once again come back into the possession of the Jewish nation, which would signify the beginning of the Messianic end time. An interesting note, Rabbi ben Samuel is using the Jubilee years from the Gregorian calendar, used in his day, not the Hebrew calendar. It didn't exist in his time. Also, he is using 50-year Jubilee cycles, not the biblical 49-year cycles as found in Daniel's prophecy. It works out though, as you'll see later, so don't worry. So what happened? At the time of the prophecy, the temple had been destroyed and Jerusalem trampled underfoot by Gentiles for almost 1,150 years. Jews were scattered throughout the nations, and there was very little hope of them ever seeing Jerusalem restored again. But 300 years after the prophecy, the clock started ticking again. In 1517, Sultan Selim conquered Jerusalem, thus establishing the control of Jerusalem by the Ottoman Turks. And just a note, this is the 7th empire of John's prophecy, where he says he saw 8 kings or empires. Quote, 5 kings have already fallen. The 6th now reigns, and the 7th is yet to come. But his reign will be brief. See Revelation 17:10. The Ottoman Turks were then conquered by the British, i.e. they suffered a fatal head wound, in 1917, exactly 400 years later. And this is exactly 8 Jubilees as foretold by Rabbi Ben Samuel. Note the difference between the Gregorian Jubilees and the Hebrew Jubilees. They're off a little bit because they're operating under the Gregorian system. When the British took control over Jerusalem in 1917, it became a divided city. The British controlled the newer, western part of the city, and the Jordanians controlled the old city and the Temple Mount. In fact, until 1967, there was a strip of land that divided the city into western and eastern halves called a no man's land for 50 years. Finally, in 1967, Israeli forces took back control of the old city of Jerusalem in the Six-Day War. The 50-year no-man's land saga of Jerusalem had come to an end, thus fulfilling the 9th Jubilee. Interestingly, it became again a whole Jubilee cycle on the Hebrew calendar, since Israel resumed the Hebrew calendar in 1948. Prior to this, the Hebrew calendar was out of sync with the Gregorian calendar, and the cycles were too long. Note here that it is exactly one Hebrew Jubilee of 49 years. The 50th Jubilee year of June 5727 to June 5728 is also the first year of the next Jubilee cycle per the Hebrew calendar. The final 10th Jubilee cycle began on June 7, 1967, or Hebrew year 28 IR 5727. June 7, 2017 will begin the 50th anniversary year, or the 10th Jubilee year, thus bringing us to the last Jubilee before the Messianic endtime begins, according to Rabbi Judah ben Samuel in his prophecy from 1217 AD. And note, the Gregorian and Hebrew calendars are in sync exactly. The Jubilee Passover of that year will thus be on March 31st, 2018. Huh, that's weird. Where have we seen that date before? It is the middle of Daniel's 70th week, if the week begins in 2014. The final 10 Jubilee periods and future of Jerusalem. The Rabbinic Prophecy was in 1217 AD. 300 years later, the Ottoman Turks took over Jerusalem in 1517. The British took control of half of Jerusalem in 1917 following World War I when they conquered the Ottoman Turks, thus ending their 400-year reign after 8 Jubilees. The State of Israel was created by the United Nations in November 1947. However, they celebrate their independence in May 1948. But the city continued to be divided for another 20 years. Israel regained Jerusalem after the Six-Day War in June 1967, thus ending the no-man's land period of Jerusalem after one complete Jubilee. The 10th Jubilee of the Jews in Jerusalem will be in 2017, where the Jews will celebrate their control of all of Jerusalem for one complete Jubilee. And note, if Daniel's 70th week begins in 2014, this will be at the midpoint of Daniel's 70th week. And for the next 3.5 years, we will have the Messianic end time. And in this scenario, the Messianic Jubilee will be in 2021, thus beginning the 1,000-year Messianic kingdom. One very interesting point. This year of 2017 also coincides with the 70th anniversary of the rebirth of the nation of Israel on November 29, 1947. This is the day the United Nations declared the formation of the Jewish state in Palestine. Now the Jews do celebrate May 15, 1948, or IR6 1948, as their Independence Day from the British. But November 29, 1947 is when the edict that created a nation in a day fulfilled the prophecy of Isaiah 66:8. And this also ties it back to Daniel's prophecy of the edict of Cyrus to rebuild Jerusalem. God looks at the day of the edict, not at the point of their completing the city or of their independence. So it is both the 50th anniversary, or Jubilee year, of the regaining of Jerusalem by the Israeli forces after the Six-Day War, and the 70th anniversary of the nation, which is one generation. And Jesus says in Matthew 24 that this generation will certainly not pass away until all these things have happened, in Matthew 24:34. First, I'd like to make a key point about the Rabbinic prophecy. Notice what the prophecy of Rabbi Judah ben Samuel does not say. It does not say, quote, after the 10th Jubilee, the Messiah will come, unquote. Many pre-tribulation rapture folks think this is what it says, and look for and teach that Jesus will return about that time, or that we will be raptured around that time. Instead it says, at the end of the 10th Jubilee cycle, it would, quote, signify the beginning of the Messianic end time, unquote. This is a very important distinction. What is the Messianic end time? I believe the Messianic end time is referring to what Jesus taught the disciples in Matthew 24, specifically in Matthew 24:15 through 27. Namely, with Jesus speaking, so when you see standing in the holy place the abomination that causes desolation, spoken of through the prophet Daniel, let the reader understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let no one on the housetop go down to take anything out of the house, and let no one in the field go back to get their cloak. How dreadful it will be in those days for pregnant women and nursing mothers. Pray that your flight will not take place in winter or on the Sabbath. For then there will be great distress, unequaled from the beginning of the world until now, and never to be equaled again. If those days had not been cut short, no one would survive, but for the sake of the elect, those days will be shortened. At that time, if anyone says to you, look, here's the Messiah, or there he is, do not believe it. For false messiahs and false prophets will appear, and perform great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. See, I have told you ahead of time. So if anyone tells you, there he is out in the wilderness, do not go out. Or, here he is in the inner rooms, do not believe it. For as lightning comes from the east and is visible even in the west, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. I contend that the beginning of the Messianic end time will be when the Antichrist cuts the Jubilee year and the next 11th Jubilee cycle short by the abomination of desolation at the midpoint of the week. The next Jubilee will be the Messianic Jubilee that will renew the Jubilee cycles again according to Daniel's timeline and usher in the Messianic kingdom. So let's see how the 10th final Jubilee and Daniel's 70th week come together. The 10th Jubilee cycle began on the 9th Jubilee year when Israel regained Jerusalem in the Six-Day War on June 7, 1967. The 10th Jubilee year will begin on June 7, 2017. Now if Daniel's 70th week begins in 2014, it will be with the signing of the 7-year peace treaty on or about October 23, 2014. See my previous presentations for the exact timing. Following the signing of the peace treaty will be the building of the third temple. Daily and feast sacrifices will resume around the fall of 2015. The first Passover will be celebrated in March 2016, and the second Passover will be in March 2017. Not long after that will be the beginning of the 10th Jubilee year on June 7, 2017, which will start the 10th Jubilee year. The midpoint of the week will be the third Passover, which is the Jubilee Passover of March 31, 2018. That will be when the Antichrist sets up the abomination of desolation, which will begin the Messianic end time of Matthew 24, which will last 3.5 years. Daniel's 70th week will be a 7-year week beginning with the signing of the peace treaty on 2014 and will end on Yom Kippur 2021, which will be day 2520 from the signing of the peace treaty on September 16, 2021. This will begin 75 days of cleansing of the land and of the people, and it will be of the consecration of the Millennial Temple, which will begin on Hanukkah on November 29, 2021, and this will begin the Messianic Jubilee year and usher in the 1,000-year Messianic kingdom. Now, just to review, in Part 2 of my study on Daniel's 70th week, we know that God uses specific signs to indicate that He is acting or about to act in the affairs of man. And we know that one of the signs preceding the 70th week of Daniel will be that the leader of the final 8-nation beast empire will sign a 7-year peace treaty with Israel, which will start the 70th week of Daniel. There will be cosmic signs that will be starting in November 2013 and ending in March 2016. The first sign will be the appearance of the comet Ison on November 28, 2013, which happens to be the only Hanukkah and Thanksgiving conjunction in U.S. history, or for another 77,000 years. There will also be a series of 4 lunar and 4 solar eclipses beginning on Passover 2014 and ending on the Feast of Tabernacles in 2015. These 8 eclipses will not appear in this sequence for over 1,000 years according to NASA. And there's a 9th lunar eclipse that will occur on Purim 2016, which I believe will warn of an impending period of divine judgment about to begin. And just a note, we will still be in a period of quote-unquote peace and safety, and much of the world will not believe that divine judgment may be right around the corner. Rabbi Judah ben Samuel prophesied in 1217 AD that Jerusalem would have 10 remaining Jubilees before the quote Messianic end time unquote. The 10th Jubilee year begins in June 2017, and the Jubilee Passover will be on March 31, 2018, which happens to coincide with the midpoint of the 70th week of Daniel if it begins in 2014, as all of the above signs seem to herald. So what is next? Well, a lot must occur before the 70th week can begin. So in Part 3 of my study, we will look at the emergence of the final 8-nation beast empire and the outlook of the final 7 years.